Can we survive the next phase of climate change?
Wetter side of the stalled front. It's actually kind of sitting where I am right now.
The announcement that every beach across Florida has been ordered to close following the detection of a massive underwater crack arrived like a seismic shock in itself. Tourists were abruptly told to leave their seaside hotels, lifeguard stands went unmanned, and law enforcement cordoned off access points leading to the shoreline. The suddenness of the decision conveyed the severity of the discovery, a sign that what had been uncovered beneath the water's surface was not a minor geological curiosity, but a feature that posed immediate and unquantifiable risks. The ocean, which for millions of people represented relaxation and recreation, was suddenly reclassified as a potential threat. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. The crack itself was detected during a routine underwater survey, part of a program designed to monitor shifts along the continental shelf and the seafloor's stability. Engineers had been examining sonar scans when irregularities began to appear, the kind of fissures that, at first glance, might resemble ordinary stress fractures in the limestone foundation beneath Florida. But these were not ordinary. The crack extended for miles, yawning open with evidence of widening activity, suggesting that the geological forces shaping it were not dormant. The fracture's location, stretching beneath shallow coastal waters, meant that the potential consequences could directly impact the integrity of Florida's coastline. Authorities did not hesitate. Within hours of confirmation, the decision to close all beaches was finalized. The precaution was based on both the unknowns and the magnitude of risk. A massive underwater crack could mean that sections of the seabed were shifting, threatening sudden collapses that could generate localized tsunamis, destabilize coastal infrastructure, or even alter the hydrodynamics of the Gulf Stream. Closing beaches was not just about preventing swimmers from being caught in unexpected riptides, it was about removing the public from the vicinity of a developing hazard whose scale had yet to be fully measured. For locals, the closures marked an abrupt interruption of daily life. Entire communities along Florida's coasts are tied to the rhythm of the beaches. Restaurants depend on the constant flow of sunbathers, surf shops cater to visitors chasing waves, and fishing charters draw their livelihood from tourists seeking the thrill of the ocean. To have every stretch of sand from Miami to Pensacola suddenly declared off-limits created an atmosphere of disbelief. People peered past barricades at the now empty shoreline, waves rolling in as they always had, while the real danger remained invisible and silent beneath the water. The scientific community immediately convened, working to gather data on the crack's dimensions and progression. Geologists dispatched submersibles equipped with cameras to examine its interior. The images revealed jagged edges, walls of rock split apart with evidence of water pressure forcing its way inside. Some parts of the fissure appeared stable, while others showed fresh ruptures. The length alone was staggering, stretching further than initially expected, and the depth suggested the fracture might connect with older fault lines beneath the seabed. If that were true, then Florida was dealing with not just a local crack, but a feature that could interact with larger tectonic systems. The implications of such a discovery extended beyond immediate safety concerns. Florida's unique geological makeup is primarily composed of porous limestone, a foundation riddled with underground aquifers and susceptible to sinkholes. A massive crack beneath the coastal waters could exacerbate this vulnerability. Water rushing through the fissure might destabilize the subterranean layers that support the land itself, increasing the likelihood of collapse inland. What begins offshore does not necessarily remain offshore, and this understanding heightened the urgency of monitoring the situation. The government's swift response underscored the seriousness with which the discovery was treated. Military resources were mobilized, with naval vessels patrolling sections of coastline to enforce the closures and support scientific teams. Satellites were tasked with monitoring surface movements in the surrounding waters, scanning for any shifts that might indicate sudden underwater landslides or rising plumes of sediment. Air patrols circled above, not only to deter trespassers, but to gather thermal and spectral imaging data. Every branch of available technology was being deployed in a coordinated effort to understand the scale of the threat. For the public, the lack of visible evidence made the closures both unsettling and surreal. Beaches looked the same as they had the day before, the same stretch of sand and surf that defined Florida's identity. Yet beneath the waves lay a fracture that had turned the familiar into something forbidden. Parents explained to children why they could not build sandcastles, surfers mourned the loss of their morning ritual, and business owners tried to calculate how many weeks of closures they could endure before financial strain became unbearable. The closure was not merely a scientific or geological issue, it was a human one, cutting into livelihoods and reshaping daily life. Beyond the human scale, ecological questions also arose. Florida's beaches are more than tourist destinations. They are habitats for countless species. Sea turtles come ashore each year to nest, shorebirds depend on the coastal ecosystem, and delicate reefs thrive just offshore. If the underwater crack continued to widen or destabilize, it could threaten these natural systems. A collapse in the seafloor might bury reefs under sediment, alter currents that marine life depends upon, or unleash toxic releases from ancient geological layers. Scientists recognized that the ecological stakes were just as high as the human ones. The crack also raised broader geopolitical and national security considerations. Florida is not just any state. It is a hub for trade, tourism, and military installations. Its ports handle international shipping, its coastline supports naval operations, and its population density makes it one of the most significant regions in the United States. An underwater geological event threatening to destabilize that coastline was not simply a regional concern, it was a matter of national importance. Contingency plans for evacuation, infrastructure protection, and disaster response were quietly drawn up, even as officials reassured the public that the situation was under study. Communication was a delicate balancing act. Authorities had to provide enough information to justify the beach closures without sparking panic. The words massive underwater crack carry an undeniable weight, conjuring images of catastrophic tsunamis or land breaking apart. Scientists were careful to emphasize that no immediate disaster had occurred, but they also could not dismiss the potential for sudden escalation. The uncertainty itself was the danger. The ocean's surface remained calm, but beneath it, forces were shifting in ways that defied prediction. The crack highlighted the fragility of coastal states like Florida in the face of natural forces. Modern society often takes stability for granted, assuming that the ground beneath us is fixed, and that coastlines will remain as they are. Yet, the discovery demonstrated that the Earth is in constant motion, reshaping itself in ways that can upend human plans without warning. The beaches that seemed eternal one day could be rendered inaccessible the next, their safety compromised by forces no one could see. As the investigation unfolded, questions multiplied. How long had the crack been developing? Was it triggered by gradual tectonic shifts? Or was it accelerated by rising sea levels and human activity? Could it eventually seal itself? Or was it destined to widen until it caused a visible rupture? Scientists debated models and probabilities, but definitive answers remained elusive. The seafloor is one of the least studied parts of the planet, and every new discovery seems to reveal how little is truly known about the forces at work below. The closures themselves became symbols of caution in the face of uncertainty. Empty lifeguard towers, silent boardwalks, and beaches devoid of footprints all spoke to the scale of disruption caused by a hidden fracture. The sight of fences stretching across entrances and warning signs fluttering in the wind gave a sense of vulnerability, as if Florida's vast coastline had suddenly become fragile ground. For many, the closure of every beach was a reminder that humanity, despite its technological advances, remains subject to the Earth's shifting moods. Even without a visible disaster, the economic ripples were immediate. Hotels faced cancellations, airlines fielded calls from passengers reconsidering trips, and local shops shuttered for lack of customers. Florida's identity as a global tourist destination was temporarily suspended, replaced by the image of a state under geological threat. The perception alone was enough to create economic aftershocks, a testament to how closely tied the beaches are to the broader fabric of Florida's prosperity. Behind the scenes, simulations were run to forecast possible outcomes if the crack widened further. Some scenarios suggested localized flooding if portions of the seabed collapsed, while others warned of sediment plumes that could damage marine infrastructure. In the worst-case models, a cascading collapse along the fissure could displace vast amounts of water, generating waves that would strike Florida's coastline with destructive force. These were projections, not predictions, but they were sobering enough to warrant continued closures. At the heart of the event was the uneasy tension between the known and the unknown. The crack had been measured, photographed, and mapped, but its future trajectory remained a mystery. That uncertainty demanded respect. The decision to close all beaches, sweeping though it was, reflected an acknowledgement that nature does not always provide warnings on a human timescale. By the time a crack of this magnitude becomes visible, it may already be the herald of forces far greater than human control. The sudden transformation of Florida's beaches from playgrounds to restricted zones will linger in memory as a moment when the ground beneath familiar routines was revealed to be unstable. It was a reminder that even the most iconic and seemingly permanent landscapes are vulnerable to forces beyond human sight or intervention. The crack may remain a mystery for years, its implications unfolding slowly, but its discovery has already reshaped the relationship between Floridians and the ocean that borders them. The shoreline has become a threshold, not just between land and sea, but between the certainty of daily life and the vast unpredictability of the earth beneath. The discovery of the underwater crack that led to the unprecedented shutdown of Florida's beaches has also cast a spotlight on the very nature of human vulnerability in relation to geological forces. What made this event particularly gripping was not just the closure itself, but the suddenness with which it disrupted one of the most recognizable coastal environments in the United States. For decades, Florida has been synonymous with the image of warm sand, turquoise water, and endless stretches of coastline. The forced removal of public access to this defining feature has created a cultural dissonance, as though a part of the state's very identity has been suspended indefinitely. The psychological weight of seeing entire beaches closed off, even when they appear serene to the naked eye, carries a profound effect on communities. People have long trusted the coastline as a permanent fixture of their lives. Families plan entire seasons around beach visits, and retirees migrate to Florida in pursuit of a shoreline lifestyle that feels timeless. The closure shatters this perception, reminding residents that the natural world can change in ways that human assumptions never fully anticipate. It introduces an unease, not just about safety, but about permanence itself. If a crack beneath the water can lead to the prohibition of every beach in the state, what other unseen vulnerabilities might exist beneath the familiar surfaces of daily life? At the same time, this development underscores the intricate connection between science and society. While geologists and marine researchers focus on the measurements of the crack, the communities affected grapple with the consequences of those measurements translated into sweeping restrictions. This interface between scientific caution and civic disruption reveals the complexity of decision-making in moments of uncertainty. The scientific language of fissures, sediment displacement, and fault lines becomes translated into barricades, police patrols, and signs that read "closed until further notice." For many, the authority of science has suddenly intruded into the rhythms of recreation, a reminder that knowledge often comes hand in hand with precaution. The story also illustrates the fragility of economies dependent on singular features of geography. Florida's tourism sector, for instance, thrives because of the magnetic pull of its beaches. When those beaches are taken away, even temporarily, the fragility of that dependence becomes obvious. Hotels without guests, shops without customers, and restaurants without diners all illustrate how quickly a local economy can grind to a halt when the resource it depends upon is withdrawn. Unlike disasters where physical destruction is obvious, here the disruption stems from absence. The beaches remain physically present, yet their accessibility has been denied, turning abundance into scarcity in a matter of hours. Looking more closely at the scientific dimension, the underwater crack introduces questions about the processes shaping the seafloor around Florida. The state sits in a geologically complex zone, perched on the edge of the North American plate and influenced by both tectonic and oceanic dynamics. Cracks of this size do not simply appear overnight. They are the cumulative result of stress, pressure, and slow movement over decades or even centuries. The discovery forces scientists to reconsider how they interpret Florida's underwater terrain. Was this fracture a sudden rupture caused by a singular event, or the visible manifestation of deeper shifts that have been silently reshaping the region? The answer carries significant weight, as one possibility implies a momentary disruption while the other points toward long-term instability. Equally important is the role of technology in bringing the crack to light. Without sonar mapping, remote-operated submersibles, and satellite monitoring, such a fracture might have gone unnoticed until its consequences became catastrophic. This underscores the paradox of modern life. Greater technological reach allows humans to detect threats earlier, but it also exposes them to new layers of anxiety. Centuries ago, no one would have known about a crack beneath the seabed. Today, knowledge of its presence has compelled the closure of an entire state's beaches. In this way, technology grants foresight while also magnifying vulnerability by making invisible dangers suddenly visible. Another dimension worth examining is the symbolism of the beaches themselves. In American culture, beaches are more than geographical features. They are symbols of freedom, leisure, and the possibility of escape. Florida's coastline, in particular, represents an idealized image of endless summer, a place where people go to shed stress and reconnect with nature. By shutting down these spaces, the crack has, in effect, disrupted not just economic and social routines, but cultural symbols as well. The absence of beach access resonates as a broader loss, a rupture in the collective imagination of what Florida signifies. On the environmental side, scientists are also considering how the crack could influence currents and erosion along Florida's shores. Beaches are not static landscapes. They are shaped constantly by waves, tides, and the movement of sand. A massive fracture beneath the seabed could redirect water flow in ways that erode some shorelines faster, or cause sediment to deposit in unexpected places. Over time, this could physically reshape sections of Florida's coast, leading to the disappearance of familiar landmarks and the emergence of new ones. Such processes remind us that coastlines are dynamic and perpetually evolving, even if they appear unchanging to human eyes. The crack also prompts reflection on the broader theme of human settlement in vulnerable zones. Florida, with its flat terrain and extensive coastline, has always been at risk from hurricanes, flooding, and rising seas. The discovery of a geological crack adds another layer of risk to an already precarious landscape. It raises uncomfortable questions about the sustainability of building so much infrastructure, condominiums, resorts, airports, and highways, on land that is geologically fragile. The shutdown of beaches may be temporary, but it foreshadows the kinds of long-term dilemmas that coastal communities worldwide may face as natural processes continue to assert themselves against human development. This event also provides an opportunity to consider how people process unseen dangers. Unlike a storm, where clouds gather visibly on the horizon, or a wildfire, where smoke fills the sky, the crack remains invisible to the human eye. The ocean surface continues to sparkle under the sun. Waves crash on shore as always, and yet the threat lurks out of sight. This invisibility can make the danger feel abstract, leading some to question whether closures are an overreaction. At the same time, it challenges people to trust in scientific expertise and to accept that not all threats come with visible signs. The psychological tension between what is seen and what is known adds to the drama of the situation. Further implications extend into the realm of law and governance. The decision to close all beaches across Florida was not made lightly. The interplay between science, law, and civil liberties becomes particularly charged when entire regions are affected. Residents may begin to wonder how much of their daily freedom depends on forces beyond their control, both natural and bureaucratic. The sheer scale of the closure has also sparked conversations about resilience and adaptation. Communities are now confronted with the challenge of reimagining life without the immediate presence of their most cherished resource. Festivals that once revolved around the beach must be relocated or canceled. Athletic events like triathlons face disruption, and even the simple joy of an afternoon swim is no longer possible. These changes test the adaptability of communities, forcing them to consider alternative ways of sustaining both their economies and their sense of identity during the shutdown. On an international scale, the closure of Florida's beaches sends ripples through global tourism networks. Florida is one of the world's most popular destinations, drawing millions of visitors annually from Europe, Latin America, and beyond. With beaches closed, many of those travelers will look elsewhere, shifting demand toward other coastal destinations. The global tourism market, in turn, adjusts. illustrating how a local geological event can reverberate through international systems. Such interconnectedness highlights the ways in which natural features underpin not only local economies, but global patterns of movement and exchange. Cultural observers have also noted how the event captures the imagination in ways that blur the line between fact and myth. The idea of a massive crack beneath the ocean conjures images of ancient legends about the sea swallowing land or fissures leading to the unknown. While grounded in scientific reality, the crack nonetheless stirs a kind of archetypal fear, tapping into humanity's long-standing anxieties about the ocean's hidden depths. This blend of scientific fact and mythic resonance gives the closure a narrative quality that ensures it will be remembered long after the beaches eventually reopen. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on Florida beaches shutting down after underwater crack? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.